Welcome to the next lesson of the Amazing Selling Machine. The samples have arrived. And here's what we'll be covering. What to expect when your samples arrive, the best way to test them for quality, and then what to do if none of the samples work out. Now, keep in mind that your samples can take anywhere from a few days to well over a week to arrive. So you want to be sure and follow up and get a tracking number from your supplier a few days after they've shipped it, and then again if it hasn't arrived within a week. Also, be prepared to have a box cutter and some heavy-duty scissors handy. Suppliers often wrap their packages in about 17 layers of tape and half a dozen layers of bubble wrap just to make sure that there's no damage to your samples when they're shipping them to you. And keep in mind also that the product might arrive with no packaging, a competitor's packaging in a completely different language, and even with a different company's logo on it. Those are totally fine and totally normal. Sometimes they'll send you those just to get you a sample quickly. You'll just want to make sure to confirm with your supplier that these will not be a part of your final product. The primary thing that you'll want to do when your samples arrive is you'll want to check them for quality. And the easiest way to do that is to pull out your product tuning notes that we made in the previous module. You'll want to test your samples to make sure they stand up against both the positive and the negative reviews. And be sure to keep notes. I use the product opportunity spreadsheet to keep track of all the product, supplier, and sample activities that I'm doing until I've picked my final product. Here's the listing for the sleeping pad that we've been using as one of our examples. And remember that several people noted in their reviews that it simply would not stay inflated. So that's one of the things I would definitely want to test out with our sample. Also, several people noted that for them it wasn't wide enough. So I'd want to test it out myself and possibly reach out to some friends and family and see what they thought about the width of it as well. And also be sure to check out what people did like about it in the positive reviews. In this case, several people noted that it was lightweight and it packed up small. So I'd want to test out my sample and see that if it met that criteria as well. If your product requires instructions to use it properly, be sure to get those from your supplier to make sure you know how to use it. I can't recall how many times we've gotten a product and didn't think it was working correctly, when the real issue was we simply didn't know how to use it. Feel free to be a little rough with your samples. I like to pretend that either the child of a customer or my own kids got this product and started doing everything possible with it just to see what could go wrong and how well it really holds up. And don't be afraid to reach out to friends or family and get their opinions on what they think of the product as well. Keep in mind that you may get samples from different suppliers that look completely identical. This happens more often than you would think. So if that does happen, when you get them in, be sure to put a sticker on them so you remember which one came from which supplier. And if your products use batteries, be sure to test out exactly how long each will last on a fresh set of batteries. While checking out each of your samples, it's important to keep track of everything you do and don't like. I like using the product opportunity spreadsheet just for that reason, because it has plenty of space for each product and for each supplier to do that. So what do you do if no samples work out? Well, first relax. If you ordered 3 samples from 3 different suppliers, chances are you should be okay. It's highly unlikely that all 3 will have issues. However, what does happen if none of the samples meet your expectations? Well, if the product generally has good reviews on Amazon, then it's most likely an issue with the suppliers that you chose. So the next step would be to get samples from your other potential suppliers. However, if the product does seem to struggle with lots of negative reviews, it could be that that product will never meet the customer's expectations because no supplier has ever been able to make it work the way that customers expect it to. In that case, our recommendation is to move on to the next best product and order samples of it. So now it's time to take action. If your samples have arrived, it's time to evaluate them and be sure to take lots of notes about what you do and don't like. And then coming up in the next lesson, we're going to talk about choosing the right supplier and getting the best pricing. So head on over there and I'll see you in the next lesson.